What's up, y'all? Homeless Plumber here. So, I have about 10 hours in Mewgenics at the time of recording here, and I will have an edited gameplay in the background of my first run all the way to the caves. I'm kind of trying out the more heavily edited post-commentary style. Apologies for the lack of audio on this one. I had recorded this as a live commentary and then decided against it. So next one, will be more heavily edited, but with mixed audio. Let me know what you guys think of the style. I tried to keep it pretty minimalist in order to kind of tell you what the build is, but not waste your time with kind of filler combats. Although they don't feel filler in the run, which is part of what I'll talk about. It's kind of part of the viewability of the game that might have issues in the long term. Is that at least at this level or in this act with these level of cats, there's certainly moments in the run that seem like they won't be overly exciting to watch. But who knows? Maybe I'm just not the most popular personality to push it. Um, Either way, though, I could definitely I could see enjoying the runs. I just don't know how heavily edited people are going to go for. So I'm trying on the heavy end here, partially because YouTube is kind of being a jerk about me trying to upload like 45-minute videos because I don't know, my internet sucks or something. Who knows? Anyway, regardless, my first impressions of Mewgenics, extremely good. I love it. It's wonderful. The gameplay and is just as deep as they say it is. The content seems quite immense so far. I mean, I haven't even made it, or I've made it to the end of Act 1, and I haven't even beat it. So for those who don't know, the 3 acts all contain 5 chapters. So basically, an act contains, like a run through an act contains 3 chapters, but you always go to the same first one, and then you have an option of 2, and then another option of 2. So basically, there's 5 altogether for each act. So less than a third of the content, assuming that that's all of the chapters, which I don't think it is, but who knows? I haven't spoiled myself on that yet. But either way, so I'm less than a third of the way through any of the runs together. There's definitely going to be more content in each one. I don't even have half the classes yet. I mean, obviously I'm not going to have a ton of the stuff. Most roguelites, you're not going to have half of everything in 10 hours. But even within these first 10 hours, I feel like I've experienced more randomness than I do in like most roguelites altogether. I've played quite a few, and listen, I'm also not ragging on them. I know that they didn't get, not every game gets a 7-year development cycle and everything. But, there's a reason why this is so good. And, maybe you get to the boss that I'm looking at right now, Fenrir, and you think to yourself, maybe this game actually sucks. You might think that for a second. But then you watch him walk into his own bear traps, and you're like, wait a second, this game is awesome. Or, like I did in another run, you get a spray can with a lighter, and you light all of his bushes on fire, and then you beat the ever-living shit out of him because he has nothing to defend himself if you just burn the bushes. This fight did not go like that. This fight went very poorly. I think this is the first time I fought Fenrir. And I'll say this. First couple runs, you're probably not going to have a problem. There's a pretty major difficulty spike once you try to go for the boneyard, in my opinion. I fully lost 1 run so far. But I've done 3 or 4 runs where I turned back late into the game because I was just kind of wanted items or to breed the cats I already had. I didn't want to really risk the cats that I had. Either way, I'll be publishing a boneyard run at some point as well, probably. Well, I mean, definitely, but that'll probably be the next thing I post. But yeah, so I think what a lot of a lot of what I've been enjoying so far. First of all, drafting ability is amazing. Secondly, let me just talk in particular about the Thief for a second. Thief is great. I love their abilities. Shockingly, um, Fighter might be like my second favorite. I don't know. It's gonna be hard to tell. I feel like Mage has the most potential to pop off in the way that I like for classes to pop off, which generally speaking is like massive AoE, massive damage, that kind of thing, right? So, we'll see. Yeah, I love elemental combos. I love chain lightning. Like if I can get a good chain lightning build, like, oh, that's perfect. But the fighter has a little bit of that, and it has that single target chonk. It's very satisfying to hit a critical backstab for 36 damage in this game. Like, that's another thing. Presentation wise, I haven't really felt any abilities that are meant to be impactful that don't feel impactful. Like, for example, there are some lower damage abilities that aren't really meant to be anything. They can be. They can be significant in and of themselves with support. Or, excuse me, not in and of themselves, but with support, you know? Like, just one that's like 2 mana for 1 damage. I think there's a ranger version of that, and then I think there's a colorless version of that. So that's kind of a case where it's like, okay, this isn't meant to be impactful. But then you have something like, Fire Punch. Fire Punch feels impactful. Right now on the screen, Pinpoint feels very impactful. Getting a target marked is really good. Very strong. And especially as the run scales, like giving somebody a critical hit is like massive. Math feels impactful, merciless. You know, this one, I will say so far, there are some particularly specific abilities sometimes on a draft where you don't really get an ability that specifically works for your team. Like it's a bit too particular. But firstly, that's meant to be expected. Secondly, that has created, or excuse me, it's not meant to be expected. It is expected. But the reason why is because it's really unmanageable by the way, that collateral with the thief is amazing. It's just with this level of variety, it's going to happen, right? Anywho, it generally speaking, when I have been picking up something that I'm like, and this isn't really useful, I've been able to utilize it in a weird, unexpected way. Like, for example, there's a passive. I don't remember if this is an item. It is an item. It's either a human brain or like a drowned brain. It gives you -2 intelligence, but it gives the mana that you spend to your adjacent allies. So imagine if you had a backline with, say, a mage that still has relative, like, say, let's say when they have the -2 intelligence, they still get like 6 mana per turn or something, and then they're just sitting there with a ranger or like one of the later level caster units, and they can just juice them up, or they're ahead of them in the turn order and they can just juice them up and then send them off. I had that with a sorcerer that I had, or a mage, excuse me, a mage that I had, where they had there's a battery ability where it gives you +5 mana per turn, but then you lose all of your mana at the end of every turn. However, they also have an ability that for 3 mana, they can give 2 mana to someone else. So basically, if you sacrifice 1 of your own mana, you can give away 4 mana for free every turn with that ability, assuming that you're spending down to your limit. And so with that, I was basically acting as a battery for my fighter and tank to go in and go off, and I just had a tank running through the lines, and stuff like that is incredibly interesting. I also had, I've had a cleric that can charge through the team and like regain mana by healing, and then charge up my tank that can throw her into better positions. Like it's very interesting. Um, and the other thing is, so far, I've had some repeating abilities, right? Of course, I don't know the full ability list for any of the classes yet, but it does, and this might be a little bit too early to say, but it does feel like Magic, first of all, in the drafting sense, of course, but also in the sense that if you are to do a draft, if you are to do a cube or like drafting from a set, you can still wrap your head around basically what's going to be in there. Like, even if you haven't heard of every single card, it doesn't feel like it's like, oh, well, what am I even supposed to do with this? It's just like, oh man, maybe I don't have the support for this archetype, but I get where this would go, right? And maybe other people don't feel like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little too optimistic about it. But I mean, I think the general feedback is that that's the case. Of course, there's times when you're going to get no support for an archetype. Same thing in Magic, it's you're just going to draft trash, or you're just going to have to go with a stupid good cards thing because you can get no synergy off of something. There, Edmund mentioned it on one of his live streams, and there's a thing that he compares to Magic the Gathering, which is do nothing. This might have been Tyler, actually. The two developers of the game, if you're unaware. They mentioned on a live stream that do nothing could be a very strong ability, right? It's literally 1 mana, do nothing. So basically, you can just cast a spell, right? It's 1 mana, 1 mana, 1 mana. So if you have a passive that does something with casting a spell, boom, there you go. Maybe it's in your interest that it's not a non-combat spell, because maybe a mana generation thing specifies that it's not an attack, right? Like, you can already see where I'm going with it. Like, I got a passive on a mage that hits a random elemental effect for 1 damage to all adjacent tiles every time you cast a spell. Now, I had an interesting synergy that game with it because I was running warp. So I could warp in and warp out, and I had enough generation to do that every turn. And potentially I could warp between enemies. So every time I moved, I was hitting potentially multiple enemies for 1 damage of whatever type and selecting whoever for the rest of my attack, right? Now, that's not a ton of damage, but, it adds up. And if I had one more thing on that synergy, or if I had, +1 magic damage on one of my items or something, like that could immediately boost it through the roof. So you kind of see where it's going, and it's like, it's that same thing. Like, if I had do nothing, I could have warped in, do nothing 5 times. That's 5 damage. I have a 6 damage attack. And that's like gonna shut down like most enemies early game, And if it doesn't, then, well, I warp in, I do nothing like twice, and then I warp out and with an attack, and then boom, next turn I warp back in, do nothing. And it's a hilarious way to win. Anywho, Fire Punch, that's another fun one. I will say, I think maybe the hardest thing to do right now, the thing that I feel is the worst part at the moment. I won't comment on breeding or anything too much because I'm not really deep enough where that matters. Like, I don't really have any like long lasting bloodlines or like really strong abilities that I'm trying to do. Like I'm mostly cycling cats out for like just breeding whatever, basically. Regardless, though, I think that it is. I think the worst part right now is trying to deal with elemental damage. Not deal with it, but trying to incorporate it into a build. Because I've gotten some items and stuff that just don't feel very useful. And for example, like freeze, I don't know if I've been getting unlucky, but I just feel like I haven't been getting much support for like a freeze build or like specifically a lightning build or something. Um, and you know, I don't know. I mean, not every run I've had is with a mage or whatever, but I will say I've had multiple times where I'm like, oh man, I'd really like to set up a fire build. I'd really like to set up a yeah, fire build is the closest I've done. I feel like that's probably the most common. But anyway, I think that there will be support for this, and I think that it's definitely something that you could plan for um, in other runs and stuff. Especially once you have more cats bred, and you can go in with one frost ability or whatever, right? And that's what I intend to do. Anywho, I'm loving the game so far, and I would like to give a big shout out because the acquisition of Mewgenics was funded by the JAFTA Foundation. Thank you for supplying the channel, both with a microphone and the game. So, anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and for today's positivity, I'd like to say I hope you all are enjoying the game as much as I am. And if you haven't been able to enjoy the game, I hope that you can enjoy my videos about the game. Either way, I don't mean to make it about my videos, but I'm just hoping everyone's having as good of a day as I am because, something I love came out today and I'm very happy about it. Peace, y'all.